Welcome to the Culinary Now podcast. I'm Jamie Schick.
And I'm Matt Britt. And today on the pod, we're joined by Chris Piro. Chris is an amazing chef with years of experience at some of the most amazing restaurants out there, like Coke's and Cadoo and Staple House. Right now, he channels his kind of experiences into the Again Foundation, which is, designed to do fine dining pop-ups where 100% of the proceeds are dedicated to providing financial scholarships for the youth in local foster care. So literally what chefs should be doing with their time. I mean, beyond the stove. Chris, we're so excited to have you on the pod. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm really excited to be here, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, I think Matt gave us a really brief overview of your background and what you're doing now. But if you'd like to go a little bit more in depth about your background, maybe some creative influences and how you kind of found food, art, and music and how it all comes together for you today.
Yeah, of course. So the Chris Piro origin story starts in the Central Valley. Well, it really starts in San Francisco. That's where I was born, and kind of went through a few different homes and was finally adopted. And was raised out in Stockton, California. So the Central Valley, a very agricultural, rich community. So I was surrounded by asparagus fields and olives and tomatoes and alfalfa, right? Like the fresh cut alfalfa driving down the road in the country is like one of the greatest things of all time. It's so good. You roll your windows down, it's just, it's awesome, right? So a lot of strong food influences for me as a young man. My grandmother, who raised me, she was this very strong-hearted, strong-headed Italian woman who cooked everything. She made her own pastas, her own cantuccinis, and for Christmas she would do these big bread baskets and cookie baskets for people with jars of preserves in there. So very fortunate to be raised in an environment like that where food was really kind of the impetus to bring everybody together. So, I mean, we would have, any excuse to get people together, birthdays and Valentine's Days, Halloween, obviously Christmas isn't the big ones, but any excuse to bring people together to the table and unite them through food was really kind of her main mission in life. So for me, a lot of my passion kind of came from kind of really kind of centered towards that. I joined the military to earn a college degree. So I was in the Air Force for 4 years, post Air Force and living overseas. So I lived in Korea and Germany. But post Air Force, I got to go back to school and I started out as a political science student at the University of Arkansas. And after doing some internships in DC, I was like, what am I doing? This isn't who I am, And it was right after I just lost my grandmother. And so I wanted to do something I was extremely passionate about, which was cooking. So I started cooking. I started cooking in some restaurants, and I started buying every piece of equipment you could possibly imagine, from dehydrators to Vitamixes to every cookbook you can think of, and turning my own kitchen into an industrial style kitchen where I could work while I was still working. So for me, art was also a big part of that too. Art was this very expressive creation for me. And I had the opportunity to kind of find my voice through art, right? As a kid, it was kind of a weird upbringing, not a lot of influences and role models in there for a while. And art was kind of that thing that was mine, it was my voice. No one could take that from me. So a lot of my food is really inspired by that same passion of being able to show people my voice and who I am, and have them kind of recognize something within me that maybe a lot of other people might not have noticed when I was younger.
So let's talk about that. Because first off, I think it's important to note that when we get into talking about your foundation, this is near and dear to your heart, not just because you're a good person, but because you were the product of a really positive experience in foster care, right? You found people and found a family that really loved you and cared for you and led you to do all those things that, were great, right? So that could be, serving in the military or, cooking for people and finding your passion that way. Can you talk a little bit about sort of at what point you realized it was time to give back? At what point was it like, okay, I've worked at these great restaurants, which trust me, I want to get to it down the road. At what point were you like, it's time for me to start being the role model that I saw as a kid?
I don't know if I had that role model aspect growing up, and I think even after I was adopted, the family that I was adopted to really struggled to be awesome parents. And I always tell people, when people ask about like my birth parents and they say, "Oh, those you mean your real parents?" And I'm like, it's such a weird line to cross because I think that being a parent is a title earned, not given.
Mm.
I really feel that, and I feel that weight of responsibility even as a mentor to people that I mentor now, right? Like being a mentor isn't something that's given; it's totally earned. Like you've got to earn trust with somebody, you've got to build a rapport with somebody, you have to follow up on actions, and stay true to your word. All that is earned, just like being a good parent, and being a parent in general, is really earned, in my mind and what I went through as a kid. My grandmother was a phenomenal influence for me. She was an incredible person, but up until her, it was really kind of a rocky kind of upbringing. I found sports in high school, which was really good for me, but it never really came out of my shell. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I never really came out of my shell until maybe I started cooking. That was something that really gave me the confidence. And so I think the weight of the mission for the pop up and the foundation, that's really what drives me is to be a good influence, to be the change that you want to see, right? So and be the change that you are so passionate about that you now have an opportunity to get back. So it was really kind of a long time coming of saying, look, I now have an opportunity to give back to other people and hopefully inspire one, two, or three, even four or five people to help find their voice. And that's really kind of the driving mission behind Again Foundation, is to help facilitate that, because the mentorship piece is so important for youth.
That's amazing.
It really is. And as you were talking, there's a lot of parallels. I was thinking of a lot of parallels between teaching and mentoring and also sports and community in the kitchen. And I know that you said cooking gave you your confidence, but I bet being on those sports teams also taught you the value of teamwork and being a team player. And I'm sure that you're instilling that into the people that you are mentoring.
100%. The sports, even the military, that type of camaraderie and brotherhood and sisterhood, and that sense of togetherness is so important in a kitchen. Like if you have one really good line cook and they can do everything, and you've got six other line cooks who are kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't think your kitchen's very united. I think that one person's going to kind of hold the weight for everybody, and but when you can bring everybody together and mentor that whole kitchen where they are equal, right? Everyone's AORs, areas of responsibility, and you trust that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, then that's like a symphony. You know what I mean? You're the
Hmm.
conductor, kind of pulling that together. Even with teams now, I'm a director of food and beverage now, and I've been at a director level now for the past like 6 years. But I always tell my teams that be who you are and be it well. Like these are your 10 AORs that I'm giving you for today. And if you do those 10 things and you crush it, and you are being who you are and you are being it well, I guarantee you the person next to you will also do those 10 AORs and those 10 tasks. And that to me is creating that kind of symphony and unity, right? That it's the same in sports, right? The quarterback
Hmm.
throws the ball, the receiver catches the ball. The receiver shouldn't be throwing the ball to the quarterback unless it's a trick play, right? But like it's the same thing. You trust that each person next to you is going to be doing the right thing, and that to me is just the same thing in a kitchen.
For sure.
So it sounds, and again, you're saying that the team matters so much in building this sort of community that supports itself and it inspires others to become part of the bubble is really at your core. And I want to talk a little bit about how you use the Again Foundation and how you use the pop up. Again, how you use food, which is, what you said made you come out of your shell and arguably is probably one of your biggest passions in life. How do you use the pop ups to kind of bring together that community and to make sure the people that should be or could be or want to be doing something more are given the resources to do that?
Yeah. So for me, it's one. I love to seat everybody at once, right? Like, and this is very onesie twosie stuff, but this stuff is important to me, right? I like to seat everybody at once so that everybody can enjoy the same bite at the same time, and kind of bring people who might not normally know each other together, right? Because like there's so many correlations to food and enjoyment and experience that it's kind of this like universal language. You know, there's a great question that was asked. I think it was Stephen Hawking or one of those guys, and it was an alien species lands on the planet. Like, what's the first thing that you are going to present to them that represents kind of humanity and culture? And that's how I look at food. I look at food as, you know, you can have someone from a total socioeconomic background, doesn't speak the same language as you, raised totally different, but if the food is good, man, there's this smile of two people sitting there, or five people sitting there, and they all kind of connect, and they're just wowed, and they're all kind of brought into this moment. And in that moment, there is this strong sense of unity, you know, and that really for me is why I do one seating, you know, and that's why the pop up works that way, where 100% of the proceeds will go to benefit the foundation, where we then take the money from the foundation or from the pop up that we earn to then fund scholarship opportunities for kids who are in foster programs, right? So we try to work with local schools and local universities, culinary programs, and we try to provide scholarships through that avenue.
So just a quick follow up on that, because I mean, is your goal, or is one of your goals, I mean, do you see food as a way that kids in foster care who might be struggling, they might not have those parents that, as you said, have earned that title yet? You know, they still have parents, which is great, but they haven't gotten to that point yet. Do you see food as a sort of a safe haven for students, or for not students, I'm sorry, for kids to go into, because you know that, you know, and we know this, restaurants, you know, have organic communities around them. Like, you know, if you're in a restaurant, you're part of it, you know? Do you encourage that with your the kids you mentor, or do you kind of push them in that direction because of that?
I think it should be organic, right? I think really what the again foundation is trying to find the creative arts. You know, like yes, and I 100% agree with your point that there is a strong sense of community, right? If you're getting your butt kicked on the line on a Friday night and you've got, you know, a rail full of tickets and your burners are all full and the person next to you is going through the same thing, there's a doggone sense of camaraderie right there. I've been through that. And then you both sit down, you know, afterwards you just got your butt kicked and you're eating gummy bears and you're just trying to chug water, you know, you're just trying to do whatever you can to get ready for the next push. There is a strong sense of camaraderie in that. And but I don't want to push, it's not for everybody, you know, and I totally recognize that. But I do think that using food and culinary and using the arts and using music and using writing, these are all things that help people find their voice. And if you find your voice on the line, you're like, dude, I love getting my butt kicked every Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, you know, until 2 a.m. Then that's for you, and that's great, you know, and that's how you find your voice and find your passion. If writing until there's no ink left in the pen is something that you're passionate about, I would love to help mentor somebody there. If it's music or painting, to me, again, at the end of the day, it's really about trying to help people find their voice and find their path.
Yeah, and you mentioned cooking isn't for everyone, and so it's so nice that even if you have an artistic, like, drive, you have these other outlets, and it's really funny is I like art as well, which is kind of what pushed me into the pastry side of things, with food being my artistic medium, and which is why I love to plate so much. But I was thinking, with working with all of these different people who maybe have different passions in the artistic arts, I'm sure there's some challenges that come up. And what obstacles do you find that people are working through, or that you're helping to mentor them through?
I think number one is commitment, right? It's and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's so hard, I think, to have people understand that, you know, a little bit of sacrifice now will really make a difference in your life, you know, 5, 10, 15, 2 years, 3 years, doesn't matter, right? Like in my 20s, all I did was travel. All I did was eat. And all I did was do a bunch of, you know, young guy, 20-year-old stuff, right? And it was really about figuring out who I was. And that's okay. Um, but for me, it's like what I tell my team all the time is if it's important to you, you'll find a way to get it done. If not, you'll find a way to make excuses. And I wish I had known that when I was younger, to find something that was important to me enough to be able to understand that to continue to drive. So that's another one of my goals, right? It's like not everybody wants the same thing. Not everybody wants to take the same avenue, and that's totally okay. But we're just trying to help facilitate something that's so damn important to them that they don't want to quit and they don't want to find excuses. That's really the main goal of what we're trying to do.
It's
Are there some specific stories that kind of come to mind that were really successful, that were just really, really inspiring?
Yeah, I have uh, gosh, a friend of mine now that I have known for a long time who we used to cook together, and he's much younger, so it's like a big brother little brother kind of relationship,
Mhm.
mentor mentee kind of relationship. And just the other day we had this conversation, the same chat. He's like, I just don't. I got him a job in Australia, or I didn't get him a job. He earned a job in Australia. I wrote him a letter of recommendation. He was so excited. He earned his way into that restaurant, with some help, because he's an awesome person. But he's 25 years old. He's been living in Australia for the past year now. He's been to a couple different restaurants. Um, Before he left for Australia, he actually got in a bit of a car accident, and it was a choice of bad judgment. And like the night before, the same night, I was like, hey man, look, the universe always finds a way to test you before you leave for cool things like this, whether it's the military or Australia or whatever it is. Just make good choices. Unfortunately, to make good choice, he had a car accident, and then his date got pushed for a year because he actually had to have surgery. So, um, but that's what I mean about like finding, like being patient with the process and understanding that he was still right back on it the second the second he could, he was back on the process. So very, very proud of him working at it, and he's trying to find his way and trying to find out the best situation for him. But he's constantly evolving, and with a lot of support from me and a lot of support from some other people. And I always say that that crib from Winston Churchill to improve is to change, to perfect is to change often. So that constant evolution of process is a part of that, is a part of his journey, and we're really proud of it.
I mean, I'm glad that story has a happy outcome.
Yeah.
You're right, it is so hard to delay instant gratification, to know that this is gonna help you in the future. It's so hard, and it's so hard for people to change, even even with technology, with new trends. Change is hard for people. So there's two factors there that are kind of working against people: change and patience.
Especially nowadays,
Oh, for
and
sure.
what the thing that I try to guide people away from with the term change, only because it has this heavy burden of, oh my gosh, I got to do all this stuff, is I always try to say improvement of process. I always try to, it's a longer word, right? But it feels a lot less heavy. Change is like,
For sure.
it weighs on you. It's like a 40-pound blanket, but improvement of process is like, it's lighter, but it also feels more hopeful. And I just don't think people need to, if anyone out there is working on improvement of their own process and their life, like, take your time, be patient with yourself. Next week, if it doesn't work, try something else. In 2 years, if it doesn't work, continue to evolve that process, because if you don't, you're going to be your own worst enemy. And you're just going to end up tearing yourself down to an area that is not going to allow you to improve.
That's amazing. On change, how is the foundation, maybe sort of in the more recent years, changed, and like kind of like what changes do you hope to see in the future? Like where do you think the foundation, given the success it has had and already doing great work, where do you think it should go, 5 years from now?
Yeah, right now we're basically scholarship based with like some slight mentorship with a few people. But like when it started, I had this grand idea of artists from X, Y, and Z, and painters and all these other things, of this strong community of mentors coming together, and kind of like a big brother, little sister, big sister, little brother type of thing, right? It was really difficult for us to manage and corral. So primarily focused on scholarship opportunities, for kids in foster youth right now, to then have that be the bridge to building a strong mentorship network, and hopefully using the culinary aspect to inspire future culinary leaders to kind of impact change on the industry as a whole, right? It's really important for us to understand how difficult it is for foster kids to be successful. I mean, if you look at the data, I think it's It's like less than 6% of kids who are in the foster system will ever earn a 2-year degree. Less than 3% will ever earn a 4-year degree. And if you don't earn a degree, the kids who don't, they're 55% more likely to end up in prison. So it's like, I'm not saying that college is for everybody. What I am saying is that education can be the catalyst for an improvement in people's lives, which have a long-term change into their futures.
Sure. I mean, those numbers are staggering, and that's like it's so scary. Number one, it makes you think about all the privilege you have in your own life, like you and the
100%.
success you've had, and what would happen if like one thing was different at a very young age. I
100%.
mean, just like mind blowing to hear those numbers. Um, I know, obviously, from a culinary standpoint, you got that covered. From a music standpoint, you're also a musician, and I think what you described is, someday you want to have this really amazing Rolodex. And for young people, Rolodex is a sort of round thing that had a bunch of contact information in it. Because I'm old. But if you had this Rolodex of like, people from across the arts, right? Are there like, and this is a little bit like more theoretical, but is there like a dream collaboration, like someone you would just be like, this person, if I could get them, it would be awesome, and they would be such a mentor to my peeps. I know that might be fiction and fantasy, but like, is there like, are you reaching for the stars on this?
I think for me, it's, man, I gotta look at who I really respect as a chef or
Mm,
chefs in general. And like, I think that a lot of chefs have had a reputation, and there's a stereotype of chefs. And I mean, I am covered in tattoos, but like, we're tatted, and we're a little bit of pirates, and we're out there, getting boozed up. But the chefs that I really look up to, and I can name them, Chef Lee Wolin of Boca, right? I mean, just a wonderful human being. He's three things that I really look for, and so is Chef Ryan Smith of Staple House. I mean, just another stellar human being outside of being a chef. These are stellar humans. Chef Lee Wolin, he's a great dad. He's a really good husband, and he's an awesome chef. And those three things, same with Ryan Smith, right? At Staple House,
mm,
great dad, great husband, and really good chef. And tag on good human,
yeah.
like you have these 3, 4 qualities that they're so impactful. These are the type of people that I want. I would love to have working with in the future, so that they can help impact others' lives the way that they impacted mine, and giving me hope. I'm not trying to get too weird, but giving me hope that there are really good people out there, because I wasn't exposed to that as a kid. So sometimes lessons like that in life are learned really hard. And when you meet these chefs who are all these categories and above, you're just like, wow, that's really inspiring for someone like me to then find new hope, to believe that there are people out there like that.
That's amazing. And I want to like just on the sort of stigmas of chef, I think egocentric is one of them as well as and all those things you described, like good dad, good partner, good chef. Those are all to do those really well, you are selfless, right? You are,
It's
of course,
unreal.
you have drive. You are using whatever, passion you have to move things forward. And I understand how that comes off sort of like looking inward, but the people that do that in a way that again is selfless, like to be a good dad, a good partner, and a good chef, like that's like a unicorn. And if you find that person, like as you mentioned, like latch onto them, like that's the person you want to follow into the trenches, not to use like a military thing, but like you follow those people into battle. And because regardless, good, bad, ugly, the outcome is going to be something you can benefit from.
100%. And you also know that their response to your inability to get something done is not going to be scorched earth. It's not General Sherman's march to the sea here. It
Yeah.
is it is, hey, yes, that wasn't right, but here's how to get it done. It's mentorship over lordship. That's one thing I always try to tell my team is like mentorship over lordship. Praise in the front, admonish in the back. And it's like, and those are chefs, and I've worked for some other phenomenal chefs, but those are chefs who really kind of embody those values.
Talking about all of these chefs, and I know you've worked at some really, really amazing places. So, something that's kind of come up for me this week that I'd love to get your take on is where do you think fine dining is headed? And do you think it's phasing out? Because
It's back.
it's it's come up a few times, and I'm curious to get other people's take on what they think.
So I did say prior to like, so when you would ask me 30 days ago, I had a totally different opinion. Um,
Oh,
30 days ago, I would have said, it's back, baby. We're rocking and rolling. Here it comes. But there's some staggering new data that just got released. Denver's getting absolutely obliterated. Their independent restaurant scene has declined by precipitous numbers. They're really struggling. I think that if you're an independent restaurant and you're not owned by one of the big 15, big 20s, right? I think that it's a bit of a struggle right now financially. There's, for better or worse, we've made a lot of progress in the plus column for fine dining. I've worked at places and worked for chefs who I'd be there at 9 a.m. You couldn't clock in until 2, and they clocked you out auto at 10 p.m., right? And you're just like, what? I didn't work at those places very long. Now we're starting to take care of our people, which is great. And unfortunately, with the rising cost of everything, we are now in a deficit. So I think that fine dining will have a place, but I think that you're going to see, I don't want to say mutated, I'm going to say, I will say a mutated version of fine dining for tasting menus, where you're going to see a lot of places who were traditionally open 4 or 5 days a week probably only do fine dining maybe 4 or 5 days a week. Tasting menus, they'll be separate. They'll be more a la carte. There'll be more bar options, more 7-day-a-week stuff. It's in a really strange spot right now with the rising cost of everything and the rising cost of labor, and then people's just perceptions of fine dining. I think the bear is, I knew a lot of people who actually were consultants on that show from Chicago, a couple guys from Smith in Chicago, and even Dave Posey from Elska, and now his new restaurant, Creepy's, good guy. No shameless plug for Creepy's there. Sorry about that. I just think we're going to be in a really strange spot, especially like the emotional toil that it really takes to open a restaurant, be a part of a restaurant, and make a restaurant successful. It's really hard work.
it
Yeah.
really is. And you're talking about, the independent restaurants are not doing well. And I think that's regardless if they're fine dining or not. I just think it's really hard to sustain a restaurant right now. And a friend of us, me and Matt, a friend of ours, just closed one of his restaurants in New Hampshire to go on to a different venture that's going to be, I think, probably more profitable for them.
100%.
And it makes me sad. Like, I love fine dining. I love working in it. I love plating that way. But
Me too.
I guess it's like, when I go out to eat, it's not always what I'm looking for. Like, I just like good food. It doesn't have to be fancy for me to be happy. I'm just glad I didn't cook it and I get to try something new. But so I guess I'm on both sides of it, but it does make me a little sad that I do think it's phasing out. And New York, I think, still has a lot of great places going for it,
Sure.
and probably West Coast. But
But look at the evolution of the menus, right? So like this is what's really fascinating. It's like, you had the molecular gastronomy when I first kind of came in and started
yep,
cooking, which is incredibly popular with Wiley Dufresne and Chef Achatz, who Chef
yep,
Achatz is an awesome, hardworking person too. Then really got hit with that kind of fusion and then Japanese, Asian influence, and then it was all Nordic. I mean, you still see a lot of it, and now it's become so simplified where you see maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 ingredients on a plate, or one ingredient done 5 or 6 different ways, if that. Like, that's really pushing it. Now it's like a piece of a wild herb, a jus, bit protein, and maybe if you're lucky, you get like a slightly cooked vegetable. And it's like it's become very austere. I think a lot of plating, and I think maybe there's comfort in that for some people with fine dining, where, and maybe that's a good thing. I'm not here to judge. It's just we're at a point now where we need to widen our search and be more broad in how we approach food and how people can accept it and ingest it, not just mentally, right, but physically, because for so long, the molecular gastronomies, the 11 Madison Parks, when they were tweezer squeezing everything, of no offense to them, I think they did a beautiful job. Some of that stuff is very off-putting for some people. It feels
yeah.
very uncomfortable, and I think the food's delicious. We're getting to a point now, though, where maybe the new level of basic plating is going to invite more people in because it feels more comfortable and more inviting. I don't know.
Sure.
These are questions that we'll have answered probably over the next
Yeah.
year, but I agree with you that it's a very transitional time for fine dining right now.
This is a totally random, but you said EMP. I heard that they are going back to meat and they are not
It's
going to be
100%.
doing. Isn't that's crazy? I need to read more about this and kind of read about why the decision was made to do that. But that's a really interesting move.
It was from what I read and from what I understand is that they actually never. So in their main restaurant, they had stopped serving meat, but I think it was put out in a story maybe a year after they switched to the vegan menu that even in their private dining, their PDR stuff, they were still doing like classic EMP menus.
Yeah.
You know, duck, etc. I don't know if they continued after that story was released, but yeah, it's I think it's mainly a financial decision,
Yeah.
and I support it. I mean, the first two cookbooks I ever owned. Number one was a French Laundry cookbook. I mean,
Of
everyone,
course. Yeah.
I'm sure the Thomas Keller French Laundry cookbook, which was like, oh man, this. I mean, that was like how you understood how to do sauces, right? The second one I ever owned was the first EMP cookbook that was ever released, and I was just floored. It was like that plus the French Laundry. I had a girlfriend at the time, and I would invite. And I wasn't a very good cook. I was maybe a year into cooking at this point, so I had no hubris, right? I was like a clown, and I invited all of her friends over, like 10 friends, and I was like trying to cook from this French Laundry cookbook and do this 4 course. I had no idea. I had like no knives. You know what I mean? I was just trying so hard, and it was a very ridiculous moment. I still have pictures of some of the food, and it was like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? But I was so impressed and so influenced by it, you know. And I hope that more people get influenced by stuff like that and just say, hey, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get weird and I'm going to look like a fool for a little bit, but those are learning moments, you know.
For sure.
So I love this conversation because it's like so what I would like to talk about for my entire life. And again,
Yeah.
that is a little selfish, but we have you. So you mentioned kind of as restaurants and menus have evolved, we've kind of gone back to basic a little bit. And I wonder if that's just sort of the cyclical nature of like how restaurants will always be. There will be, really simple, great food. I look at something like Alain Passard, Arpege. I mean, like, again, like this is not new stuff. This is someone built an empire on a carrot. It's like, it's a very, inspiring, simple thing. And then boom, everything happened. You mentioned Japan, you mentioned Nordic. I mean, we got crazy, but now it's coming back, right? I wonder if, and again, Jamie, to your point, like it's kind of like we kind of want to eat basic food. Like, I mean, we've
Yeah.
we've all probably gone places that have been, experiential and worth the travel, and but been a little bit weird, right? And like it's cool, but at the end of the day, you just want something basic. So, do you feel like that's kind of like going back to basics is almost just part of the how restaurants will always be?
I think so because like I think what happened for us is that the culinary industry is that we grew at such a rapid pace. Like we were these strong independent pirates for a long time, flying our flag and independent radio type of thing. And then of no offense to Netflix or anything like that, like they did an awesome job. But the Chef's Table, I think, really blew everything out of the water. Beautiful series. I mean, gosh, if you didn't get hooked on wanting to eat fine dining on season one of Chef's Table, I don't know, man. There is no cure for you, right? Like, I just thought it was so well done.
Yeah.
But we grew so large that everyone had a restaurant, and then I think that we got really away from technique, and that's okay. That's just a part of that kind of rapid growth, and now we're unfortunately we're shrinking because that puts a lot more stress on financial stress on a lot of people. But we're getting back to technique driven stuff, and even at again pop up, right? Like nothing that we do is we try our best to not waste anything. Like if we have a carrot and we juice it, we're going to ferment the pulp and then we're going to dehydrate it, or we're going to add it to a sauce, or we're going to crumble it or something, or we're going to take the peels and I mean, I don't, growing up how I grew up in a very food insecure kind of, you don't know, you know what I mean, type of environment, eating, potted meat with like 50-cent cans. It was weird. I just don't want to be that person who doesn't respect the ingredient. And I'm glad we're respecting ingredients, because like, maybe, and this is me from when I was in my line cook days, maybe someone saved up all their money and saved up for months just to come eat at your place or eat at your pop up or eat at your thing. And you're like, holy cow, like what an honor, like that's so respectful. So like we should have that same respect into our ingredients and into the things that we kill to eat, to consume. Like we should have the same damn respect for the things that we drink, right? Like you can dehydrate and make teas and then have a nice tisane, or have a non-alcoholic beverage pairing right with that. And like there's so many cool things that you can do with food, but just to discard it, I think is totally disrespectful. And I'm glad that we are getting back to the basics of respecting those ingredients again, because that's to me is a really a huge part of what again pop up is all about.
I love the word respect. And I
Yeah.
think to bring it full circle, one of the ingredients that we obviously should respect is our people. And, that's, kind of what the food is great. And listen, I have not been to an Again pop-up. It is on my list. I'm searching for babysitters currently. And a cat sitter, baby and cat. They have to be both. But I think, food aside, which is why people come, the fact that you're valuing the human ingredient, I think matters far more than any sort of fancy foo-foo thing you do with tweezers, which is great. But I think at its base, we got to take care of the people. And I think that's, you deserve credit for that, chef.
For sure.
Being a mission driven pop up is like, I feel, man, I always get a little emotional when I talk about it, because I just feel like it's such a gift and an opportunity to be able to say, hey, okay, cool. Like, yeah, it was a painful, it was painful to get where I am right now. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of self-reflection. There was a lot of bumps in the road. A lot of mistakes were made. But to have the opportunity right now to have a platform where even if it's one person, two people, like we have an opportunity to hopefully and just change someone's life, like what a privilege, what a privilege to be able to raise money to have someone not be worried about where they're going to get their next meal, or not be worried about if they can afford books this semester, or, hey, do I have to work 50 hours a week, or did this scholarship just allow me to focus on my studies a little bit more, So like, I just think that as we get older and to do things that are mission driven isn't just about like the one group of people that I'm trying to help. It's about having an impact to the greater good of who we are as human beings. It's getting down to that basic ingredient of being a human and taking care of other people so that they don't have to go through, hopefully, what you went through, and you can have an impact on their lives.
That's so amazing. Well, we thank you for your time today and chatting with us. And if people do want to find out more information about your pop-ups, the foundation, where can they go to find all of that out?
Of course, yeah. It's www. That always trips me up. .againpopup.com, and then that's for the website, and then againfoundation.com, all one word, obviously, for the foundation. You can also follow us at again_popup on Instagram, and my personal Instagram, where I try to post a lot of food stuff, is CJ Cooking Stuff on Instagram. So we also have a Twitter, but I'm not very active on it. I don't. Twitter's a great place for culinary. So, but yeah, we can go there and then sign up for stuff. And we're about to publish a newsletter here in the next, probably by January. I'm sorry, middle of January. We're looking to publish a newsletter. It kind of has like an overview of the impact. We're going to be focusing this winter primarily on working with local students and trying to find an impact as well.
Well, that's all fantastic. And Chef, we're going to put all those links in the episode details so that people can kind of go right from listening to this, watching this, to support you. Chris Piro, again, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.
All right, before we start recording, I have to understand, let's talk about Faroe Islands real quick. 5 seconds. All right.
Please.
Why do you feel restaurants like that or do you feel that restaurants like that are outside the effect of inflation, recession? They're almost excused because they're so experiential and you have to try. Is that a thing where like people still go to Noma? Like, why?
Well, look how they receive their produce, right? Like if you look in there's a lot of reasons why. One is pay. Pay is way different because cost of living is different. Quality of life is way different. But if you look at like where they source their ingredients, they know all these farmers, they know all these guys, right? It's not some giant farm who has to mass produce, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. Like they're 20, 15, 5 minutes away, from
Yeah.
all these places. They have their own farms because land is more affordable. It's cheaper. I mean, when I was at Colks, they paid for you to live in like this hut,
Yeah.
down by this creek, which was awesome. Like you have to worry about housing when you're out there, right? So it's like Noma. Luke Smith from Smith. I've known him for a while. He's like the Noma R&D chef over there, and he's like, it's just totally different. It
Yeah.
really is. So I just think it's access to produce, it's access to people, and you look at Spain. I mean, there's so many beautiful restaurants. It was so cheap to build, not cheap, but cheaper comparatively speaking, to build a restaurant in San Francisco, right,
Yeah.
or a restaurant in New York. To build a restaurant and have it be profitable because the land is important. So it's just different.
It's a good point. All right.